So welcome to another Impact Sessions podcast with me, Nick Bramley. This week I'm delighted to introduce Lisa East, Managing Director of the Thinking Cap. And Lisa's an expert in all things sort of social media and platforms and content. So we're going to explore why anyone can and should be interesting on social media. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Lisa.
Thanks very much.
That's okay. Nice to see you. I know it's the first time you've been in the podcast. You mentioned in the off air that it's been on your bucket list, so I'm glad we can help you tick something off. But I will be kind to you so that you hopefully enjoy the experience. So welcome to the Impact Sessions.
Great. Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, let's explore something. First of all, we're looking at things like content creation, how anyone could or should be more interesting, as we've said, and why a lot of people struggle with the concept. And, even though they've got time on their hands, are not particularly comfortable or confident or in some cases capable of writing or engaging on social media. So, but I always start with a bit of a potted history. Potted
Yeah.
history of Lisa East. Where did you come from? What was your career? When and how and why did you set the thinking cap? Because I suspect that you weren't setting the thinking cap up at the start of your career because social media may or may not have been around to the level it is now. But
Yeah.
give us a bit of background, Lisa.
Okay. Well, when I left school, social media was not a thing. So when I originally started my career, it was in print and direct mail. So it was all offline stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to be an account manager, increased sales departments, things like that. So what people call junk mail.
Mm-hmm.
I basically went out and managed accounts who did a lot of direct mail for the big companies in Leeds, like Communisys, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I progressed and managed my own department, which was data profiling, which gave me a real insight into why people react, what makes people click. But it was all offline. There was no social media, Facebook demographics, or anything then. It was all um, lifestyle data. Why did somebody respond to a coupon or competition? So that really gave me a bit of fire in my belly to do something more along that line.
So that's the science behind engagement, isn't it, really? Even if
It
it was offline. And I
Yeah,
guess print is just as the younger generation listening to this was, print was just sort of hard copy social media, really, wasn't it? In if
yeah,
you think of it like that.
yeah. And can you get the address right? If the postcode's on, the address is right, and the postman can get it in the letterbox, that's what's now called reach on social media, I suppose.
Mm,
The postman's not going to get attacked by the dog and can get it in the letterbox. That's then hitting somebody's feed, like
mm,
feeding a doormat. It's obviously very different. The children now, and my son who's 12 will not know what direct mail is. They'll probably never receive anything, in the post. Everything, according to them, is on the screen.
mm.
So
Okay. I mean, I like the fact that the grounding that you had was based around science and knowledge and really understanding the demographic of the customer, because that would lend itself really well to the transference into sort of what you do now. When did thinking cap come about, and what was the
yeah,
catalyst, if you like?
well, I moved from direct mail and print into agencies. So I moved to the client side. And I was a very, very good account manager at an agency purely because I used to work on the other side of the fence. So I knew what people needed before they knew what they needed.
Mm,
Um, and I was a bit sick of lining somebody else's pocket.
mm,
I was doing all the work, I was doing the sales, the DM, the account management, and I just thought um, it was time to start a family. I had Stanley 12 years ago and a bit, and I just thought I need to be more flexible for him,
mm,
with school drop-offs. My husband had a really high-powered job. It was never really there. I knew that would land on on my shoulders to do, and I just thought I'll start my own agency. So 11 years ago, I started the Thinking Cap. Um, Originally, the customers were more, can you do this print job? Can you clean the database? Can you tell me who my customers are, the profile, buying data, helping them with the science behind what works?
mm,
And then gradually people stopped doing mailings because of the postage prices went up massively.
Yeah.
TNT and Royal Mail all of a sudden had different competition. It wasn't just them, and people confused, and a lot of people stopped altogether and did email marketing.
I think we had a sort of seminal moment or two where the world thought, right, let's stop sending anything hard copy, and email marketing, and certainly before social media, and then social media itself became the only sort of show in town. I'm not convinced that it should be the only show in town, and we'll explore that a little bit. But there was a distinct shift, particularly in sales teams when I was working with at the time, who was just suddenly becoming, we'll just send emails. But unlike you, they didn't have the science behind them. They're just like, bombarding people using MailChimp and other things. Before GDPR, it was just like the Wild West, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. And there was no segmentation. It was the same message to everybody. And then they wondered why, people were dropping like flyers and unsubscribing and replying, get me off your mailing list. So I mean, I started doing email marketing because of that. And I was trying to tempt people to, okay, let's mail certain people and let's email other people and let's test it. So I carried on doing mailings, smaller versions of short run personalized print jobs, and email marketing. And then social media came in, and it was a bit of let's keep everything, all the plates spinning, do a bit of everything. So it's gradually changed. I only do email newsletters for one customer now. I still do the IMPACTUS for people, and I outsource design because I know what has the impact. And since COVID, DM has had a massive increase.
For those who don't know, that direct mail is
DM.
Sorry, there'll be people who be going DM.
Because
it means something different. Generationally, it means something different now, I think.
The thing is, Nick, DM now is direct message.
Exactly.
In inbox. So that's a good point, actually. So the increase of the open rate for direct mail has increased since lockdown. For brands who are targeting their products and services at consumers, we're sitting ducks now.
Well, I was going to say it's a lot harder for B2B because the B2B recipients are not in their B environment, i.e., they're working from home rather than working from corporate, or they're working from home instead of working in a work environment. So I guess B2B direct mail is a nightmare, but B2C, like you say, we're literally sitting ducks, aren't we, for that?
Yeah, and I've tried. I do direct mail as part of my whole strategy, and then I used to mail people at the business address, and I've had to wipe that out completely now. So that's not obviously something it's going to sit under a year's worth of post before they get to it. So.
I'm not sure it's going to, however good it'll be, it's not going to stand out when they're clearing the decks, is it really?
No.
Okay. Not. So I'm intrigued then in terms of the transition. So you've transitioned, and I definitely think that the principles of what you've built your career on are valid as a transferable skill into email marketing, and very much so into social media. Are you self-taught in the social media area? When did you get into it? When did that become, a real cornerstone of the thinking cap then?
Yeah, I mean, I've done loads of masterclasses, as in other people's. It's all self-taught. I've done a few classes where I've covered it. A lot of my experiences, I've been in the sales team, I've been an account manager, I've been at lots of different companies. Over the years, I've managed a lot of people's marketing. I've only just niched into social media in the last year. I used to do all the marketing, sales and marketing consultancy for a variety of different companies.
Yeah.
I know how people like to work. I know what people's worries are, depending on their industry. A lot of people in the print industry don't like to be on socials because it's against what they do. If their customers go on social media and don't print, they're out of business.
Yeah.
A lot of printers don't want to do certain things because they can't mention the customer, because Joe Blogg's printer down the road knows their rate card and will pinch them.
Yes.
So I know there's a lot of insecurities around what people are happy to post, especially if it's on behalf of their company. If it's not their company and they're just a member of staff. So I'm very much self-taught, and a lot of my business experience feeds into it as well, because it's easy to say it's just common sense, because it isn't to everybody.
Well, common sense isn't that common, by the way, is it?
Yeah.
I think that's a phrase that we're all probably familiar with, and we see that a lot. If those of us who go into businesses, I've been in businesses, and the turning over, significant amounts of turnover and revenue and profit, and that's almost despite themselves. And you think to yourself, "Good grief, how have you got to this?" And it might be luck, judgment, or opportunity. But okay, well, listen, I'd like to explore. We touched on, from a direct mail point of view, we're a captive audience as consumers, but as COVID-19 for business owners and business people and sales professionals and key account managers, has that created a good opportunity, or has it been more of a challenge with them getting their message out the other way, in terms of reaching their audience? We've got homeschooling, we've got furlough, we've got all the other pressure of that. Is it a good time in a lockdown to get active with your content strategy?
Yeah, it is definitely. I mean, I know it depends on the person, the size of the house, how many kids. It all depends. Like, everybody is completely different, and you can't really pigeonhole anybody really as to how easy they're having it or how difficult they're finding it personally, or in business. There are lots of pluses and minuses to being locked down with regards to business, because you have to concentrate on it. You've not got a lot of the office interruptions that you would normally have. You don't have the commute, so you should have longer to do it. But on the flip side to that, there's more distractions. If you've not got children, there's a TV there with Netflix on it, and you might want to finish something off you were watching last night. There's lots of distractions. And basically the other thing is as well, you can be sitting in a room, and you've got your plan, but people feed from people. And if they're working on their own, or the families around them, and whether there's distractions or not, some people feed from the drive and the commute to work might spark an idea, or talking to somebody in the kitchen at work, or just having banter in the office could spark content, and they're not having that anymore.
It's a bit of creativity, isn't it? It's that, it's very hard to be creative if you live in isolation.
Yes.
It's much more to be creative as a tribe of people, I guess, isn't it? Whether that's, like you say, interacting on the commute in on a train or bus or drive, or listening to something on the radio which you're not listening to because you're not commuting anymore. All those things can spark. You mentioned the word plan, though. That's interesting. I'm an avid I guess, warrior for the sales plan. I think a lot of businesses seem to go from one thing to another. They seem to sort of ride out I don't know, crests of waves and slumps and things without that much of a plan. So talk to me about a content plan. Should a business, well, I know the answer, should a business have a content plan, but what's a content plan going to look like for them? And how many businesses have you seen who've just not got anything in place? They just randomly ad hoc, create stuff and bang it out there.
Yeah, I've worked with lots and lots of companies, and some of them have business plans. Some of them have marketing plans, but none of them tend to have content plans. So the difference is obviously the business plans, where the business is going and what they need to do financially and blah, 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 machinery and all that kind of stuff. The marketing plan is what they need to do to get somewhere, what they're going to market. Is it a product? Is it a service? What month? But the content plan is, how do you do that? What content is everything you see on the screen? Anything that lands on the doormat, anything that, so it can be a blog, a press release, it can be tips and hints, and it can be previews, it can be testimony. Anything that you can see and read on a screen is content. But people don't have a plan of that, because it kind of, they either wing it, or they don't, or the plan it.
What have you seen? What have you seen that people have tried and sort of think, oh, I've got a content plan, and you look at it and go, not really. It's not much of a plan, that, to be fair. What are the things that people misread as being organised on content and social media then?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people do one blog a month.
Right.
And blogs are great. I do, I'm a massive advocate for blogs. But they think one a month, and they just put it on the website. and that
Right.
is it. So that nobody will see it unless they go to the website.
Yeah.
They don't even use it. You know, there's lots of things I tell people to do with blogs, even if it's creating an email footer to say, read our latest blog, and
Mm.
every member of staff do it till
Mm.
you have another new blog, sending it in a newsletter, and obviously putting it on your socials,
Yeah.
you know, and also a blog to me, if you've spent the time doing it, create a LinkedIn article with it and copy and paste everything into an article,
Mm.
because your LinkedIn people will then see you've done an article, but they might not necessarily read your newsletter
Yeah.
or go to your website
It's
or receive a
multi-purpose, isn't it?
job.
A blog, you know, is a multi-purpose vehicle if used correctly. You know, like you say, you can cut pieces out. You can use tasters and teasers and all that kind of thing. But if you just sat on your website I liken that. I say to people, you know, you should be on the high street with your doors wide open, all your lights working, and welcoming people in. You know, if you've got a blog on your website, you're down the back alley behind the bins next to the old Chinese restaurant that's been closed for 2 years and no one can find you, can you? It's pointless, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's telling everybody it's there.
Okay. Well, let's talk a bit more about actual content. Then we talked about people being interesting or relevant or, you know, just thought provoking, etc. You've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You've got Pinterest, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Is it any wonder that people don't know where to start?
It is. And the problem a lot of people make is they think they need to be on them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they spread themselves too thin, have burnout, pull the hair out, don't bother. And
It
then they
must be
don't do
almost impossible to manage all of those channels. I mean, there's very few businesses I would imagine need to be on all of those. And there's a few more that I haven't mentioned as well. But, you know, surely that would I know businesses have a social media manager. Their job is to, you know, crack content out on these platforms. But you can burn that out quite quickly, can't you, really? So so
yeah.
where do you start then? What would you know, as a business, I'm sat here thinking, I know I should be doing more content, and I know I should be doing something interesting or relevant. And we've talked about blogs as one area, but that's about, you know, what do we do with it? But where do I start? Where do I start as a business with all that opportunity? What do I do?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I do when I speak to any new customers is to ask them what they're wanting to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Are they wanting brand awareness? Are they wanting to sell a certain product? Obviously, it's probably both. And what is the product? If they already have a database of people who have bought from them, then you can always profile the data, which is going right back to my beginning of my you know, experience in work. Find out what kind of age group, what's the lifestyle, and from that you can work out what platforms they're more than likely going to be on. If you've got a following on LinkedIn, then obviously that's more, you've got your business platforms and you've got your personal consumer platforms. Another good way to start is, you know, no matter which platform you're on, you will have a following. And like on Facebook, you can push notifications to people who have already liked your page if you wanted to do adverts. So it's quite easy to work out what platform a customer should be on.
Well, you say that it's easy for you.
Concentrate on.
It's easy for you to do that, I guess, and it's easy in with not hindsight so much as just a helicopter view. B2B, get yourself on LinkedIn. B2C, Facebook, Pinterest. A visual medium, stick yourself on Instagram, and maybe do something crazy on TikTok. But that's still all well and good saying that we know where to start then. But why do people not then? Why do people not? Is it? I'm going to ask you a question. Copywriting, i.e. good written content, or visual, as in designed content,
Yeah.
what's the best? What will get me the best return?
It depends on your medium. So, okay, you are on social media and you want to stop the scroll. Text won't do that, an image would.
Right.
So first things first, if you're on social media, you need a really good image to stop the scroll. And then obviously the writing behind it. It has to be, are you going to keep on reading down? So if you are sending an email newsletter, it's the title that lands in your inbox.
Right. Because
Yeah,
that's all they see, don't they? They only see
yeah,
the one line, so that one line's got to hook them in.
yeah. If it's a blog, then it's the image, depending on, obviously it'll get pulled through in your socials to stop the feed, but it's your first paragraph. So it varies. Obviously you need people to read a whole blog. Copywriting is hard to do. It's hard to get it right. And you need the right keywords in it, you know. I mean, I've written blogs before that, before I've even shared it anywhere. I've had somebody ring me asking me for a price, and they sold amazing bean bags from New Zealand that imported, and they were from Manchester, not in my network. And he'd rung me because he'd seen a blog that I'd uploaded onto my website just because of the keywords and something that I'd searched for on Google the day after. So it's, you know, that's quite a one-off.
So would you say using professional advice and support, particularly, I think copywriting is a real skill, and I know a number, you know, Katie Thompson springs to mind, and Katie's been a guest on the podcast previously. She runs a company called Katie Lingo in York, and she's a very proud freelancer, and you know, she's really, really good at what she does, and she works with other people who are really, really good at what they do. The challenge, I guess, is, do people value the expertise that a professionally trained copywriter can bring to your content plan?
I don't think people do value it as much as they should. I think if it took Katie a day to write a really good blog and her day rate was a certain amount, people would think, what? I could get somebody to do my socials for a month.
Yeah.
What we need to think about is, okay, that's the day rate, and I will repurpose that to do social media internally. I always want people to do the socials themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's where, you know, the living it, the breathing it.
Can I just stop you there? It's also, to be fair, it's also a pain in the arse to do someone else's social. Is it not? Is it? Let's be totally honest. It is a pain in the arse to manage somebody else's social.
That's one of the reasons why I'm called the thinking cap, because I'm constantly having customers' hats. What hat have I got on now?
Yeah.
It is hard from personal point of view, dipping in and out of other people's socials. You know, I manage a few different companies and they're very varied, and you've got to get behind the persona of the customer. What do they want to hear constantly? And being on different platforms, acting like you work for them. And it is hard.
Is that where the name came from, the thinking cap, then multiple hats and all that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like it. Should have asked actually where it came from, but now we've got there through a little bit of a ramble towards it from my viewpoint. I apologise for not maybe asking that earlier, but so the likes of your Katies of this world, your likes of your professional creatives, design, even video producers, you know, there's a value to them. My advice to businesses is, stick to what you're good at, stick to knowing what you're good at, and pay other people to do the stuff that you're not. I'm assuming, obviously, as a consultancy, training and coaching type business, you're an advocate of that. Have you seen people try and then they just go, social media doesn't work because it doesn't work for me? Is that something you've commonly seen with people? You know, they give it a go badly and then they blame social media itself.
Some people don't give it long enough. They don't blame the platform. But they don't give it long enough. A lot of people, I mean, when I do work for anyone, I make sure it's for a minimum of 3 months.
Yeah.
Some people generally give it a month, and you have to keep, if you're doing it yourself, a month's a long time if you're doing your own social media and the planning and the posting, as well as doing your day job. And it can feel like it's longer, and if you don't see the interaction like you see everybody else is having, why bother? I've got nothing interesting to say. Why would they listen to me? And it's a bit of a, that's it, I'm not going to bother. And then they see a month down the line the interaction and the engagement somebody else is having, maybe a competitor, and it's like, well, I need to be doing this. Yeah, but you need to be consistent and keep doing it, not just dipping in and out when you've got a spurt of energy to do it. You need to keep doing it to get the awareness going.
You mentioned about, I've got nothing interesting to say, or I don't think I've got anything interesting. Some businesses are quite dry, and I'm sure those who work in the businesses that are dry know who they are and know what they are. How the hell do you get inspired if you've got a pretty dry, maybe you're a service provider, maybe you're professional services, maybe you haven't got an interesting product. How do you create content if what you do day to day is perceived, and that it might even be by you, to be just fairly mundane?
It is hard, but you got to take a step back. And I think that's where, if you outsource anything to somebody like me, comes in, because I see it from a different point of view.
Hmm.
I'm starting to work with a group of accountants in March. And, the content is good because, to me, I'm quite excited by it. Although accountants with a sense of humour are quite hard to find, so
Yeah.
people think. But I will bring it out in their feeds. I mean, because they're professional, it doesn't mean to say they have to be boring and dry and
Hmm.
look professional all the time. Yes, they do on some of the posts, and the facts and the tips and bits and pieces that we'll be posting about will be very factual, will be honest and reliable, and really a good source of content that people will need to see. But dotted in between that, behind the scenes, there'll be humorous things about accounting, and there will be certain things in there that you've got to keep slipping in every now and again.
Well, you need the personality of the people as well, and the personality of the business, I guess, the DNA of the business. So, I mean, I wasn't thinking accountants. I'm saying I wasn't, but I maybe was. Accountants, they know it's not their problem, but it is their challenge. That people's perception of it is it's a bit dry and a bit dull and all a bit sort of. And they're not. I know lots of really engaging, articulate people, but they're not particularly good at pressing the sales button and promoting themselves because they think it's just what we do. I've heard loads of people meet at a networking event. They go, "Oh yeah, I'm just an accountant," thinking, why would you introduce yourself as just something? Um,
Yeah.
so this is about you looking sort of 360 at them and saying, let's find the stories, let's find the personality, let's find the DNA. So does that come to things like, video, for example, where you might have a senior partner or putting them on video and doing something that they might be uncomfortable with, but it creates, a little bit of a buzz, or it creates a different perception or persona of that person, and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the social media platforms algorithms work based on you doing a variety of different things. Just
Mm,
posting with an image, boring, is what
mm,
they think. Yeah, you can do it every day, but until you give me something different, like a video, an animation, a GIF,
mm,
something that is going to be different, then your reach that the platforms give you are quite limiting.
mm.
So I always mix it up. You've got to have different types of medium in there, and videos are great.
Yeah. Okay. I love a bit of animation, but I'm always in awe of the people who can just create animation. A picture paints 1,000 words. Animation's even better sometimes, isn't it? Because you just do so much with it in terms of flexibility. Um, One of the things I've seen you do recently was you created a promotional calendar for a particular business that you shared with me as part of the research for this. And do you want to explain the principle behind a promotional calendar? And I guess the one I saw was for a year. How hard is it to think about what's happening in September when we just turned the clock on sort of March, which is when this will be going out? You're 6 months of it. How can you think about content in September?
Yeah, well, it starts with a conversation, really. I mean, for me, it's quite easy because I know I do them all the time, but it helps me. It's like a discovery session. It's something
Mm,
that I always start with when I take a new customer on. And we just write down January to December, and I'll just say to the customer, what's the peaks and troughs within your industry? Not sales, not, well, I'm really busy in July and it slows down near Christmas, not that. It's like, what makes people buy from you? What not what day of the month, but what month and why.
mm,
So the particular customer that I was doing the promotional calendar for when we got started talking was for a company who do diaries and journals and planners and notebooks, and they have you would think it's January to December are their calendars, but the thing that's unique about them, you can start it in March and you can have it for 3 months, 6 months, you can have it for 18 months.
yeah.
So there isn't a set pattern to when people buy, but people buy for gifts. So
Yeah.
you've got your Mother's Day, your Father's Day.
Yeah.
It's Children's Mental Health Week this week, so mood diaries. So for me, I'm constantly thinking about what national days, like the national, diabetes day, or people who run a marathon. Like, I've got no chance of running a marathon. I could have eaten a few in the 80s, but they're
Well,
now called Snickers.
when they used to be called marathons, of course. For those who don't know, that was the
Yeah,
precursor to a Snickers bar. But
yeah,
I'm with you. I'm with you, Lisa.
yeah.
You
So,
know,
but people who want to run a marathon have got to plan it.
yeah,
They're not just going to do it in April. They're going to have to do it a year in April. So there's jogger and running diaries. So to
yeah,
me, because I've seen that on his website, okay, when's the lead? The Great North Run,
yeah,
Leeds Marathon, London Marathon, and diarise these months. So it's they do the fiscal calendars, they do the accountancy planners, they do. When would somebody do a notebook?
yeah.
When would they start goals? Normally January. Let's fresh start, fresh year, new goals. So it's things like that.
There's
To
quite a
me,
lot of research goes into that, then, isn't it? It's not like
it is.
a random, rinse and repeat. We're going to do this in first quarter. We'll do exactly the same in the second quarter. There's quite a lot of research goes into that. So, is that where the skill set comes in from working with somebody like you? Is that research for, like you say, the national days? How can we make the link and the connection between National Wellness Week and a planner? If I was the business owner selling the planners, I'm probably more concerned with manufacturing and importing the planners than I am thinking about how does this link to Wellness Week. So your role is then trying to think about we need to look at the year as a whole and plot content that's going to be at the right time in the right place on the right platforms. Then, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it starts with I immerse myself within the company.
Mm.
Obviously, I look at the website, and that's how I've been doing it recently because I can't physically go in. I normally go in for a full day if it's manufacturing.
Yeah.
I get my steel toe cap boots on and my high vis jacket, and I don't leave. I'm taking photographs and I'm looking at what's happening, what products are being printed, right down to I've done some work for a box manufacturer in Bradford,
Mm.
and the make boxes. Wow, but to me, what kind of boxes do? They do loads of personal care. They do the vaping packaging. So they do all sorts of different things, like the COVID testing boxes was massive for them recently. But they do a lot of drinks packaging boxes, so gift boxes near Christmas for the drinks industry.
Yeah.
They do lots of outside packaging for distilleries, because there's a load of distilleries popping up, just to put bulk bottles in. And they just do anything that can come in a box. So where do you narrow that down?
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to think in sectors. And it helps them as well from when I go in, from how I plan things, they realise there's gaps on the website as well.
But you'd
So,
look at that, the distillery stuff, for example, gin's massive, isn't it? And, it's become so you'd look at that and go, there's probably a requirement for that more in September, October, November, when people are buying gin for presents and whatever. So that's how you plot that into the calendar, and you might have something else in the summer, something else in the, whatever it might be. So that's interesting. So,
yeah, it's focusing on, they also did like beard care sleeves for beard wax. The National Beard Day. You might have known about that, Nick.
I did. I did know about it, because you get
Yeah.
loads of stuff thrown at you because people know. I know you got a beard, and people on social media go, it's National Beard Day or National Bald Head Day or whatever. There's a blooming day for everything, by the way,
There
Lee.
is, there is, and that's why it's helpful to me, you see. But
Yeah,
you don't ride all of them, because it then just gets tacky. You
yeah, yeah.
just do the ones that are helpful and
All I remember in my iPhone calendar is it's the Battle of the Boyne at some stage, because they throw that in every year. I don't know why that's the default on a particular day. You give me National Beard Day, it tells me the Battle of the Boyne was on a particular day in whatever month it was in. So I apologise to those who are interested in history and the Battle of the Boyne. I don't know what month or day it is, but it does pop up every now and again. So certainly every year in my calendar. So listen, do you reckon a business can generate enough leads and enough opportunities just by social media? Are we saying that now content and social media is the only game in town, or is there still a place for other activities then? Where would you say it sits?
Yeah, I think everybody needs to do a mixture of everything, really. You know, they'll all have different customers on different platforms. So this is how I used to approach it years ago when I was in direct mail. I used to look at somebody's database and I used to say to people, okay, everybody in that database, if you were to mail them, and then you will find all of your sales staff, add up all of their LinkedIn connections, you will not have an overlap by more than probably 1 or 2% who you just mailed.
Yeah.
So if you're going to mail everybody in the mailing list, that's great because that's everybody you've got an address for. But then you've got your connections on LinkedIn. There will not be any person who are in both, probably.
Yeah.
So get posting on LinkedIn.
Right.
But then you'll find you'll have people on, you know, a different platform. Again, if you're B2B and B2C, because I deal with some companies at both, you know, people who've ordered online will be different again to people who are on Facebook.
Yeah.
But there will still be consumers. So you've just got to look and plan and write down everywhere where you've got data. And you will find there will be different people who will just be in one area, not both. So if you just do one thing, then you just talk into that audience all the time and not everybody.
It's
So
a real discipline, isn't it? I mean, I always say to people, I'm a professional sales consultant, trainer, whatever it might be. And I always say one of the two things you need in sales is discipline and the other one's creativity. And never more so when we're talking about your specialization at the thinking cap, which is, like you say, helping to create content. You need discipline to know what, who, why, where, and you need creativity to engage and excite them. So we'll finish on that I'm going to ask you one more question. Is 2021, we still don't know. This is going out in March. We're recording this in early February, but it's going out in March. Putting your Mystic Meg sort of
thinking hat on.
Thinking hat on. There you go. See what you did there, Lisa. I see what you did there. What would you say it holds for you? What you're working on right now and what's next?
Well, I've got a few customers that I want to concentrate on. And I want to develop the thinking cap into more of a nurturing masterclass training side. I think the benefit of people who are being furloughed or working from home really need to be probably doing a bit of self-awareness on the platforms, and if I can be there to help them do that, then that's great. You know, what I'm wanting to do is to help people realize the potential, see the content that's at on, and just run some masterclasses to help people, really.
They are sat on it already, and that's the thing. They're sat on it without knowing they're sat on it in some places. So
yeah, and realize they've got a voice, you know, and they've got something to say. I know a lot of people think, well, what have I done that anybody could potentially be interested in? And there's lots of information that
all sorts. So on that note, I'd like to finish by sharing with those who watch this rather than consume it audio. I'll just share the two slides that we finish with, which is basically saying, look, this is where the podcast's available. It's the Impact Sessions with Nick Bramley. You can search it on any of the usual podcast platforms. We host it on the IMPACTUS group website, and all the links and everything are going to be in the LinkedIn post that we post every Tuesday, which comes out as a fresh episode every Tuesday morning. I've got Lisa's contact details there. It's Lisa at thethinkingcap.co.uk. All that remains for me to say, Lisa, is it's been really interesting. I'm really pleased that we've covered some areas that will hopefully let people think about the fact that they've already got more going on than they thought they had. So, you know what, just tap into it. If they can't tap into it, get a professional to help them, because you're better off doing something great than nothing at all, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. Nice to see you. Was that okay as a first time podcast? Bucket list.
Yeah, I've ticked it off now, Nick. You're my first.
Excellent. Okay. Well, there you go. I'm not going to go anywhere with that. Some of the listeners will know I am biting my tongue on an industrial scale. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Lisa, and I'll catch you soon.
Great. Thanks, Nick.
Cheers. Bye.